I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Thank you for joining me. My guest today is Jeffrey Hindman. He is a Vistage chair in the St. Louis, Missouri area, and Jeff has 4 groups. So tell me about your groups and how long you've had them and all of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I have 2 CE groups, a key group, and I have an advanced leader group, and I'm starting a trusted advisor group.
Very cool.
So my one CE group I've had for 16 years. My other CE group I actually started in March of this year. My key group I've had for 10 years roughly, and my advanced group leader group is probably 2.5 years old.
Very cool. And I have to ask, so having a group that's, that's 16 years old, and a CE group that's 6 months old or 7, 8 months old at this point, what has changed between the times that you've recruited a CE group? What was the experience like then versus now, and how did that go for you?
So my first group, which was the 16-year-old group, I launched in 08, 09, and it was tough. Vistage was, newly branded, so nobody knew what Vistage was. Plus, in 08, 9, 10, we were in a pretty serious recession, and people were leaving Vistage like crazy, and nobody was joining. So trying to launch a new group for the first time during that period was really difficult, and very, very few people were able to do it actually. But anyway, so that was one thing. And today it's people know who Vistage is. Vistage today is very well respected. And although it's still not easy, at least we have the name recognition.
Well, and I'm sure also it helps not to be recruiting during an enormous recessionary period.
Right.
A lot of chairs that I talk to will say that starting their first group was one of the most difficult things that they've ever had to do in their, as a professional period. But then to be doing that in the middle of a housing crisis and the Great Recession, I mean, that must have been just uniquely miserable. How did you stick with it? Like, what kind of kept you going? Because I imagine that there were a lot of obstacles.
I've always been somebody that perseveres. I I at the time also had an executive search business, recruiting business. So that side of building a group was not a problem for me. And it was just something I wanted to do. And I've never been one to give up. So I just kept pushing through and was successful. I mean, out of my what they called Studio 6 class, which was training for us.
Hmm.
Now I think they call it Academy now. We had 21 people in my class, and only 3 of us launched. And I think there's 2 of us left still in
I
the
was
system.
gonna ask how long everybody made it,
Yeah,
but
there's just 2 of us now.
well, it must have been a super unique time to be doing this. Um,
Yeah. Plus I
in
had been a member, so that helped too.
so yeah, that was going to be my next question. I'd love to hear about what brought you to Vistage, and then what compelled you to become a chair. What was you mentioned executive search, but what was your professional history like prior to Vistage, and then I'd love to hear about your experience coming to Vistage as a member and a chair.
Yeah, so the first 18 years of my career were owning and running food service distribution companies. So I did that for 18 years. And then I was in the vegetable business for a year. But when I had and then I started my search firm in 1994, 95. Anyway, so when I had my distribution company, so 92, 93, 94, during that period, a young guy who was trying to launch his first group in St. Louis, because my distribution company was in St. Louis, stumbled into my office, and I was a young guy, and he was a young guy, and he's telling me about tech at the time, and I was very intrigued, but I had some things going on in my company, and I was having some problems with some customers that hit me with bad debts and whatnot. So I knew I couldn't join, but I was intrigued. And that young guy that was launching his first group was a guy named Alan Hauge, who you may have talked to. And it was his first group years and years ago. So, and now Alan's one of the top chairs in the system. But anyway, I was intrigued. Fast forward, I sold the business and didn't do great when I sold it because I had 3 customers hit me with $1 million in bad debt and couldn't recover from it. So I did some recruiting, and then I started my own search firm and built that up, and had an office in St. Louis, one in San Francisco, and a lot of recruiters. And when I got to San Francisco, I seeked out tech at the time, and became a member, and was a member for a number of years, and then moved back to St. Louis, and I obviously dropped out. But when I got back to St. Louis, they approached me about becoming a chair. So.
Very
And
cool.
I enjoyed it. So I did that and ran my search business for many years. So
What was the hardest part of being a chair for you personally to adapt to? What's an example of an area where you sort of had to change your style and the way that you do things in order to be a better chair?
I would say, my personality profile that, they test us, all of us. And, so I have a tendency to be a pretty driven guy and, very kind of a dominant personality, very extroverted, have no patience for anything in my life. And I had to tone that down like crazy, and really bring my graph closer together, because so much of chairing is listening and not talking.
Right.
And you have to listen, you have to comprehend, and plus you have to have the empathy to go with it. So, I learned to do that, and I think I'm pretty good at it now. But in the beginning, it was a little bit tougher. Plus, we all have a tendency to want to consult, and Vistage chairs, as you probably know, are not consultants.
No, you're really
So more
supposed to
coach.
be, yeah, more of a coach, more of a facilitator even. And it's also got to be different working with folks when you're, so obviously when we think of Vistage and we think of a Vistage meeting, we've got that big group dynamic. But then the counterpoint to that being, you're also very often doing one-to-ones and working with your members outside of the group. Uh, what's that balance like for you? How does your approach evolve depending on which role you're playing?
I mean, relative to one-to-ones, or
Yeah, relative
based on
to
personalities?
yeah, because you're having to, I mean, running the group is um and the role that you take in running a day-long group meeting is a different energy and a different perspective than you would bring to a one-to-one, that or if a member calls you personally with like, oh my God, this is what I'm going through. Um,
Sure.
how do you pivot between those different roles?
The facilitation side of it's not that, I mean, it's facilitation. It's not that tough. But in the one-to-ones, it's, you're adapting to each person. Each person has different needs. Each person has different personality. Um, and, some people, it's really just being a cheerleader. Other people, it's, really kind of putting your thumb down and, uh, and being a tough guy on accountability and
Right.
calling BS. So because they'll try and BS you, and then you got to call them out, and then sometimes you have to call them out in front of the group.
Are there specific sort of personality types or types of individuals or backgrounds that seem to play really well in your groups, in your opinion, from what you've seen, or who's a great member for you?
I have a lot of great members. It's interesting. So my members have a tendency to be a little bit younger, so 40s, early 50s, which is unusual because I'm an old guy. But I get along with people that are younger than I am, and I enjoy that. And I worked in a family business for 10 years and have that experience. So a lot of these folks are in family businesses, and yeah, so. Um, it's just really it's adaptability. Some of my members are introverted, some of them are extroverted.
Sure.
You match cadence with them. I mean, it's the whole, you know, neurolinguistic programming kind of a thing.
What's something really profound that one of your members has actually taught you? What's a lesson that you've taken home from a Vistage group that you chaired?
Well, it's a good question. I learn constantly from my members. I mean, it's fascinating because we're always learning about what they do in their businesses, and our membership is very diverse. Um, I don't know. I think I've learned to be a much better coach. I coach a lot of family members. I have brothers, for instance, or I
Hmm.
have fathers and daughters, and it's interesting to kind of mediate that relationship, and I've had a lot of fun with it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. So
And that must be kind of fascinating when you um, because you have the ability if you have people in different groups and they're related or they're in the same business and being that person that's talking to both of them intimately in this way. I mean that gives you a really fascinating perspective on an issue.
yeah, and sometimes you get involved with these family members that really don't get along at all.
Right.
And the job is, or the goal is, to over a period of time get them so that they're on the same page, and they may still kind of, I don't want to say fight, but they may still disagree from time to time, but they
Sure.
learn to do it more respectfully.
If you were talking to somebody who was a business owner, entrepreneur, um, and and they never had that peer group experience before. They'd never been in Vistage or any of the other groups. Um, what would you, and not that you're necessarily trying to sell this person, but what advice would you give that person about that's thinking about, well, maybe it's time for me to join a group?
When I talk to people, I ask them, who do you have that you talk to? I mean, who do you confide in? Who do you share things with? Do you have a board? Do you have confidants? Everybody needs that. It gets lonely at the top, obviously. That's why Vistage exists. Um, and then especially with people I know, I talk to them about financials and how long does it take you to get financials every month? And we really that's a good test to see how successful somebody is. I mean, if they're on top of their numbers,
Right.
uh, they're probably doing okay. It's like with a restaurant. You walk in the bathroom, and if it's clean and shiny, then they're probably making a lot of money. If it's dirty and smells, then they're probably not.
Uh, very cool. I hadn't heard the how long does it take you to get accounting closed and then relating that to the bathroom before. That's a new one, but I'm gonna tuck that away. Trust me, I'm gonna remember that one. What's the best way for if folks have questions about Vistage, about your groups, about you? What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Um, LinkedIn, or LinkedIn's fine. The one thing I'll say is when I get something that's sent to me and it says Jeffrey, I just delete it because nobody calls me Jeffrey, but my name's Jeff.
Okay.
LinkedIn's fine. My phone number's available. Um, you know,
Well, we'll
people
link
can email me.
we'll link to your LinkedIn in the show notes, and we will be very clear in letting people know that if they want their notes answered, that they should call you Jeff.
Yep.
And Jeff, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad that you made some time to talk to me today.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.